Hello and welcome to Cardiff Metropolitan's PGCE course. My name is Mark Williams and I'm going to be talking to you about well-being today. First of all, it's probably important that we decide what we mean by this term well-being. So could you please take perhaps 30 seconds to think about and write a definition in the chat if that's possible. Okay, we've got around 15 seconds left. So if you are going to put something in the chat, now's your time. Okay, thank you. Well, on the screen I'm putting a definition that's been created by an NHS website. Here we talk about well-being being the experience of health, happiness and prosperity. Having good mental health, high life satisfaction, a sense of meaning or purpose, and lastly, and perhaps most importantly, the ability to manage stress. Now, thinking about this, your well-being is going to be incredibly important, isn't it, during your PGCE year? You're going to be faced with completely new challenges, but you will overcome them. Now let's think about stress. It's important to remember that this is going to be a stressful year, but it's not our only stressful year. Having lived through the past 2 years, I think we've all built up a high degree of resilience and we're able to achieve things that perhaps 24 months ago we may have thought impossible. Now, can stress be good and bad? Well, it's important to remember that not all stress is bad. We need a certain amount to keep us on our toes and motivated. Now, unless you're at an amusement park and about to experience the ride of your life, you might not enjoy that panicky feeling that you get in the pit of your stomach sometimes. On the other hand, if this feeling occurs in response to moderate stress levels, the upside is that the pressure and nervousness you feel can potentially boost your brain's performance. This is because moderate stress strengthens the connection between neurons in your brain, improving memory and your attention span, and helping you become more productive. The fight or flight response you feel when stressed is designed to protect you, whether it's from injury or from some other perceived threat. What's interesting about low doses of the stress hormone is that it also helps to protect us from infections. Now, moderate stress stimulates the production of a chemical called interleukins. Apologies to the scientists in the room for my pronunciation there. And gives the immune system a quick boost to protect against illness, unlike its evil twin, chronic stress, which actually lowers immunity and increases inflammation. Now, there's no denying how going through a tough situation helps us to build resilience. When you experience something for the first time, you might think it's the worst situation and crumble because you don't know how to cope. But as you confront different situations and overcome various problems, you train yourself to deal with similar incidents in the future. Now, you don't just need to believe me. Think about a tough situation you've dealt with in the past. How did you handle the stress when it first happened? Now fast forward to the present. Have you dealt with a similar situation recently? If so, did you handle the problem differently the second time around? In all likelihood, you did, since you knew what to expect and you understood the possible outcomes. You probably felt a greater deal of control. And because of this, you didn't give up or crack under the pressure. So this is how stress has made you stronger. So I'd like you to think now, what do you think are the 5 most stressful jobs in the UK in 2021? Again, I'm not going to give you a great deal of time to think about this, but it would be great if you could put your responses in the chat for me. 30 seconds should be enough, I think. Okay, we're coming down to around 15 seconds. Okay, apologies if I didn't give you enough time there. Right, so let's have a look at the actual answer. So at the top we can see prison officer, the most stressful. If we look at fourth down in our list, it's being a teacher. Now this is sometimes a surprise for people. Another surprise is the fact that being a doctor is number 7 on the list. Now a teacher isn't expected to revive an elderly patient who's having a heart attack. So why on earth is teaching considered more stressful than nursing or being a doctor? Well, from an outside perspective, teaching might seem like a much easier prospect. However, Mark Greenberg, who's researched teacher stress, suggests that teachers often feel pressure from 2 main sources, and this is often a continuous kind of pressure. These are behavioural problems in the classroom and assessment. Now, when it comes to student behaviour, there are some statistically significant factors, and I'm going to list these from most to least stressful. So most stressful, hostility towards the teacher, inattention during class, noisiness, lack of effort. Going towards the bottom of our list, where there's hostility towards other students, lack of interest in learning, and growing class sizes. Assessment is also a concern. 81% of teachers in a recent study said that they believe that students spend too much time taking tests or assessments. For teachers, more time teaching to the exam means less control over the curriculum, less instructional time, and more stressed students. And of course, these factors can lead to more stressed teachers. So this year we've already said it's really important to develop our resilience. Now this can involve taking the time to reflect on and be clear about your values, your preferences, your skills, your aptitudes, and your professional identity, because this can help you develop a strong sense of purpose. This makes you more likely to respond to difficult situations in ways that are consistent with your purpose. Now, one place where we can have the greatest impact on our resilience is in a place that is between a thing that happens and how we interpret and make sense of that thing. That interpretation takes the form of the story we tell ourselves. So let's think about an example. Imagine a student rolls their eyes at you. That's the thing that happens. How you make sense of this and interpret this event is precisely the point where either your resilience can be drained or filled. Because you can either interpret the eye rolling as, this student just doesn't respect me, or you can interpret the eye rolling as, this is pretty typical behaviour from an 11-year-old. I'm just going to move on to the next part of the lesson. In that moment, if we can hone our ability to expand that space between what happens and how we respond and how we interpret it, we have so much more power in order to cultivate our resilience. It's also important that we develop habits that nurture relationships with our colleagues and other students, as well as our students who we're teaching in the classroom. This will help to strengthen our resilience. Now, teaching can sometimes feel like a lonely experience, and I think that anything that we can do to begin cementing these connections will help us really at the start of this career. Now, the beginning of clinical practice is an ideal time to start. Put in place relationship building habits so that you create a community that can be a source of strength for you all year long. Develop habits of mindfulness. Now, this is where we focus on what's happening right now without any judgment. This can help us to circumvent a triggered reaction to daily challenges, and instead we can respond more calmly and more thoughtfully. Daily meditation, or even just brief moments of focusing on our breath, can help us to hit that pause button and bring ourselves to that place of calm. Now, our brains have a negativity bias, so everything that's challenging, that's potentially a threat, appears really vividly and clearly to us because of the way our brains are wired. And so one of the skills we need to hone is the ability to see all the things that are going well, or even just the things that are going okay, and think about these positively. In the classroom, for example, we can prompt ourselves to regularly notice students who are paying attention and on task, rather than giving all our attention to the few students who aren't. By developing this habit, we can increase our sense of empowerment, which in turn helps us to build greater resilience. Now, nearly 80% of teachers consider leaving the education profession due to stress. So keep that figure in mind and make sure that you do everything that you can this year to make sure you build up a strong sense of resilience, to make sure you're not one of these statistics. Okay, there have been a number of different studies looking at teacher well-being. Now, just as it's important that students are supported when they continue their learning, we also need support in order to continue our effective teaching. Now, I've said already that having a reliable and cohesive team of student teachers with you to lean on is extremely important. Now, this could mean from getting helpful resources to seeking advice about how to deal with other problematic pupils or students. Teachers need a strong support system now more than ever. Now, it's also important that you get into some good habits from the start of your career. Now, this includes encouraging boundaries around work beyond typical hours. So make sure you give yourself that time off. Check in regularly with other students on the course and with your other teachers in school. Treat yourself with kindness. Think about the job that you're doing. It's a very tough one, and you need those little moments when you actually just congratulate yourself on what you're doing. Also, think about the new technologies that you're using in the classroom. Think about the new skills that you're developing. These can all be quite challenging, and you need to remind yourself that you are doing a great job. Now, how does teacher wellbeing affect our students? Well, our stress levels can be transferred onto the youngsters who we're working with. Hattie and Yates in 2004 suggested that student achievement suffers when teachers are burned out, because too often we focus upon just survival in the classroom, I suppose. So spend some time during each lesson or after each lesson to think about what went well, and just remind yourself about what went well during that lesson. Now, the well-being of our students enhances their learning and helps them to develop as good citizens. And that's something that we all want. So you're not being selfish thinking about your own well-being. What you're actually doing is you're improving the well-being of these young people who you're working with too. Now, positive psychology is very popular when we talk about education at the moment. Now, people often talk about it helping to shape students' values and moving attention away purely from their academic achievements and grades. Now, positive education looks at the concept that student and staff well-being enhances and develops responsible and productive members of society. And really, that's what we want, isn't it? We want to leave our CP1 school knowing that we've made a positive impact upon those students. And school isn't all about academic grades and achievements. It's about building that comfortable, well-rounded, positive citizen. Now, in a recent article in The Conversation, Seligman's PERMA model was discussed. And I'm going to talk to you about this on the next slide. Well, what on earth is this PERMA model? Well, it was developed by positive psychologist Martin Seligman and was published in his book in 2011 called Flourish. First thing he talked about is positive emotion. So for us to experience well-being, we need positive emotion in our lives. Now that can be any positive emotion such as gratitude, satisfaction, pleasure, inspiration, hope, curiosity. And it's really important that you enjoy yourself in the here and now. Engagement is also discussed. Now, if we're truly engaged in a situation, a task or a project, we experience what's known as a state of flow. Time seems to stop and we lose ourselves in it. And this feels really good. So the more we feel this kind of engagement, the more likely we are to experience well-being. Thirdly, we need to think about positive relationships. Now, as humans, we are very much social beings, and a good relationship and good relationships with those around us are really important to our well-being. Time and time again, we see that people who have meaningful, positive relationships with others are happier than those who do not. So please remember that having positive relationships and staying in touch with your friends is really important. Now, if we think about meaning, this comes from serving a cause bigger than ourselves. Now, if we think about the kinds of role that we're going into the teaching profession, and that is very much a caring profession. So we're hitting this point straight away. And lastly, accomplishment or achievement. Now, many of us are striving to better ourselves in one way or another, to improve our ability to do something. Now, that's something you will be doing every day in the classroom. So please make sure you take time to recognise the brilliant things that you're doing. Think about how your teaching progresses from one week to the next, and remind yourself that every lesson you teach, you're becoming a more experienced teacher and hopefully a better teacher as well. So how can you support your well-being this year? One thing you could do is think about this table. Think about this PERMA table, the positive emotion, engagement and so on, and just write down some things that you will do, that you'll make a promise to yourself that you will do each week, just to make sure that you remind yourself at the end of the week, at that Friday evening, that you've done lots and lots of positive things. Now, we also have to remember that teacher well-being in this post-COVID world is incredibly important. We're battling with a new protocol. We're responsible for calming our students who are feeling anxious about coming into class. We're adjusting to a new normal in school. So teacher well-being is incredibly important. Now, it's something that schools are thinking about and they are tackling. So think about what's happening in your school, talk to other staff there and find out what's being done to make sure that teachers are as supported as possible. Now, having positive relationships, as we've already said, is incredibly important as a teacher. Resources are important in developing our awareness and practice about well-being, but our relationships that we form with other people are probably more important. Think about your mood when you're in the classroom. Think about setting up something like a mood monitor so that children can actually tell you how they're feeling. Make sure that you spend some time discussing what you're thinking about and what you're doing and why you're delivering a lesson in a certain way. Show how you manage your own feelings with your students by talking about how you feel and what you do about it. So, for example, you could say, I'm feeling a little bit unfocused at the moment, so I'm going to have to breathe deeply, take a drink of water. Remember, you're the role model and you're the person who these young people will look up to and will copy. Now, the Teacher Wellbeing Project talked greatly about the importance of building relationships, but also spending time listening to those people who are around you. Now, as a new teacher, it's absolutely imperative that you listen to those people who've been teaching for a number of years. You'll be full of enthusiasm and you're eager to contribute to the meetings and the discussions, but be careful. Remember, you don't want to come across as a know-it-all. Now, the teachers who you're working with will be really keen to hear your new voice, but your presentation of this is really important. They'll help you navigate the ups and downs of teaching. Think about how they speak in meetings, during professional learning group times, and with other colleagues. Model your behaviour on the people who you see around you. As soon as you develop that sense of professional identity, you'll develop a much more comfortable feeling within the classroom. Now, please spend time asking questions of these people. If you don't understand something or if you need help, don't be afraid to ask. People would much rather you ask a question than watch you flounder. Ask your colleagues as well about their interests, their hobbies outside of work too. Get to know them better so that you get a rounded idea of what it is to be a teacher. Now try to support your colleagues. And by your colleagues, I mean not just the student teachers who are on your course, but also the teaching staff who you'll be working with in school. Supporting your colleagues' work supports them and shows that you care about their interests. Participate in the committee meetings. Test drive any new lesson plans or ideas they put together. Take part in their surveys. And if you find something that really resonates with you, let the teacher know. They'll appreciate the support and your interest. Now also offer your help. You might find that you're very technologically savvy in comparison with some other members of staff in the school. If you've got a special skill, let your colleagues know and offer your help. This reverse mentoring is really powerful in building relationships. Now, I think I've said this quite a few times already, but you need to take time to yourself. It's often regarded as a bit of a luxury, but relaxation outside of school time is absolutely paramount. It's really important that you take care of yourself. This could be a simple thing such as making sure you get enough sleep and eating well, or it could be just rewarding yourself with those little things that you enjoy. Now, how are we going to support you this year? Well, within the university, you'll have your own personal tutor who will meet with you. You'll have your subject tutor, and you'll also have your peers on the course, both within your subject and across subjects, and they're incredibly important. There are a number of university support systems in place, and I'll show you our student homepage in a few moments' time. Within school, you will have your mentor. You'll also have your subject mentor. And as I've said already, those PGCE students are going to be in your school, and your university tutor will be there too. So it's really important that if you do feel that you need some support, you speak to the people who are around you. If you're feeling stressed or you're finding something quite difficult, it's very likely that the other students within your school or within your subject are going to feel much the same way. So by talking to someone, it makes everyone feel better. Now, as you can see here, I've put a screenshot of the student homepage. Now, there are a number of things that we have within the university that can help support you. So please spend some time having a look at student support services. They're incredibly useful, the kinds of activities that they can put together, the kinds of resources that they can put together for you. So please spend some time looking at this page and seeing how you can be supported. Now, one thing that's really important is that we need to identify students who will need additional support during their studies and during clinical practice. So we have this self-assessment form. Now, you'll get an email sent to your Cardiff Met account from CSE Partnerships, and this will include a link to the additional needs self-assessment form. Now, this is what it looks like on the screen. Now, all students are asked to answer the questions and complete this online form. You might have absolutely nothing to declare on the form. That's absolutely okay. All the information gathered here will be kept confidential. Now, if you do tell us about a medical or a disability need, then I will email you over the next few weeks and invite you to come to a meeting with me. Now that might be face-to-face or it might be online if that's something that you're more comfortable with. There we'll discuss any particular needs and we'll put together an appropriate support program for you. Now this could involve, for example, reasonable adjustments on your clinical practice. So if I know that you need any kind of additional support here, I can get in contact with your school with your permission, and then we can discuss how we can best support you to make sure that this is a really successful year for you. So please make sure that you complete your self-assessment form as soon as it comes to you. Now, there are also some support mechanisms at the university when we think about your assignments that you have to complete this year. The Library and Information Service are particularly useful here. They have academic skills specialists who can help you if you're worried about your assignments. You can also, as you can see from the screen here, upload a writing sample. So you can send in some of your work and these individuals will comment upon your writing and make some suggestions of how it can be improved for you. Okay, it only remains for me to say thank you for your attention during the session today and to leave you with this coping calendar. Now, as you look through it, you'll see that there are some really nice ideas here of how you can try to look after your well-being and build up your resilience over the coming year. So just spend a few moments having a look at that and thinking, what could I do at the end of each week to reward myself and to remind myself that I've done really well in my school this week and that I do deserve that little treat. Okay, thank you. I look forward to seeing you on campus soon. Bye-bye.